All right, buddy.
And Neil.
Hey guys,
We're back. Sorry we left you for so long.
it was long, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was quite a while, but we've been away, and then we'd been together for a rare occasion when we were all together at the Football Blogging Awards. You probably all aware by now that we didn't win, but we'd always said it wasn't about the winning, didn't we? We'd always said that it was just about the... Let's revisionist history, please. Once again, thank you so much for all of your votes, etc. It was nice to actually see each other in the flesh for once. I think am I right in saying that's only the second time that you two have been in the same room? Well, bar the Rico, obviously.
I met Paul once at the Rico, and that was it.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, this was good times.
And that was fab. So thank you very much, and well done to Matty Roper for getting as far as he did as well. Yep. And it was good to meet him and share a table with him. Right then, we're gonna do moments of the week. I guess there's very little point in doing moments of the month, bearing in mind that they probably all the best ones probably came from about less than a week ago.
No, that's not strictly true.
Why did I know that fucking little Miss Contrary over here would end up saying, well, actually, my moment of the 1951-52 season?
Well, technically, since we last did this, there's been 5 moments. There was Joe Cole's free kick against Barnsley. There was the return of Ben Turner. There was the return of Biggie.
Ben Turner of the Mac? That doesn't even work. Sorry, move
no.
on.
That was such a good try, though.
Yeah.
Wasn't
it? I'm very tired. There's going to be a lot of that today, I think.
Yeah, and obviously there was the demolition of Gillingham, and going to the top of the table and then compounding it by not being shit against Bradford. So since we last talked, there's been many memorable moments. For me, I think it was, having seen him perform the last 2 games, it was the return of Ben Turner, who just looked complete at ease and just looked around him and went, you're all beneath me, and dominated everyone he played against.
Isn't it amazing that in the last month we've had enough moments of significant size that would have been moment of the season for any other year that we've been doing this pod? Yeah, Ben Turner being back is astonishing, isn't it? That is a player. I know everyone went bananas about Joe Cole, and for good reason, but that is a player that is palpably too good to be playing in League One, isn't he?
Game changer, isn't it?
It's ridiculous, yeah. I know.
I mean, it now gives us a spine when they all play in the correct position of Turner, Winslow and Fleck. And to be fair, Biggie was brilliant against Bradford. And then Armstrong, where you've got basically a spine of players who are, if not one of the best in the division, too good for the division. And you just see the way they're playing, that those players, that spine of the team is something that we've talked about for years and lapped for years, but it just gives you so much heart when you go into place and you realise that that quartet of players are here, and let's just hope that the 2 who aren't permanent do get the opportunity to stay for as long as possible.
Paul, I'm going to look forward to hearing you talk more about Big Romana's performance against Bradford shortly. But Neil, do you want to give us your moment of the week?
I actually had Ben Turner on my list as well. Same reason. I just feel like the team with Reader was always, it felt like mostly complete, didn't it? It was almost like everything was slotting into place. But then when Reader got injured, I never felt like we were quite as controlled or dominant. And then, he comes back in and suddenly we do feel controlled again, and I feel like we can change our focus back to attacking, which is all it was pretty much. It was like the defence was sorted, and then it was just all about the attack and how many goals we'd score. And I feel like that's kind of the direction we can focus in now. I mean, a lot of people will think Biggie would be my moment of the week because, Biggie is my logo, all that sort of stuff. But I'm not really that fussed about him being back, to be honest. I just feel like when we had him before, he was a shining light because of everything Biggie is and how crap we were at the time. Now, there's just so much going on. It's kind of like, Biggie's back. Okay, yeah. I'm happy to see him play when he gets a chance, but I'll take him or leave him, really.
To be honest, Neil, it's one of those ones where if you'd have been at Valley Parade or whatever they call it these days, you'd have been very happy. I mean, he was, considering
that's a fair point,
how good Fleck's been, we didn't miss Fleck at all, and I can't give Biggie a bigger compliment. I thought Fleck first half again for a very long time. Biggie was, and considering how big he played against Gillingham, he was immaculate on Tuesday. He was really, really good, and it's nice that it might. I was worried how long it was going to take him to get his feet back under the table, but it was very pleasing to see how composed and how good he was on Tuesday night.
I think the question with Bigirimana now isn't necessarily about the impact that he might have during a short-term loan spell. It's more about, is this an indicator of maybe a more longer-term signing? Because I gather that Newcastle have no interest in retaining him whatsoever. He's got a reasonably long contract that I imagine they'd be willing to sever if under the right circumstances.
Yeah.
And you don't know whether actually it's more of a, could we pick him up permanently in January if he has his contract severed, and then all of a sudden you've got just this phenomenal strength in depth. And I think if you look at the other teams that have gone up, one of the things that's characterised them is when they've hit January, they've safeguarded, so they've ended up over-recruiting, like Newcastle buying Leon Best off us the season that they went up for the Championship, and Wolves buying Leon Clark off us. Yeah. You wonder whether actually that might be rather than waiting for Reeder Johnson to get injured and then having to replace him, you bring Bigirimana in if you can, and I'm speculating, to make sure that you haven't got to worry about it.
I kind of feel like you say that's kind of what we're doing, isn't it? I mean, we didn't need Joe Cole in any form, did we? Yet,
still don't.
Yeah, exactly, and yet he's here. We still want to keep hold of him for a long time. You know, it's kind of I haven't really expected or felt like we needed any signings for months. And yet we do still keep making them. So yeah, that's new for us, and that is the sign of changing the times, I think.
Presley mustn't be able to believe his eyes. I mean, it's a really poor reflection on him, unfortunately for him, isn't it? Because it just seems like every other week they're just like, oh, we've brought in either another former Cov player that everyone loved, or we've brought in Jacob Murphy, who's fantastic. Yeah, it's just like, oh, everything we're touching turns to gold at the moment. He's just like, I didn't know whether Jamal Loza was going to be any good or not.
It's just a showcase of sort of Mowbray's reputation, isn't it? And also all the good that we're doing at the club at the moment. And like, there's a big argument about loans and all this stuff going on at the moment, when in reality we've got just as many loans as everybody else. The only difference is, because of what we're doing, and because of how we're playing, people want to send their better players to us. And that's good. It's nice, because we've had to deal with the shit for like 20 years of just people sending any old person to us because they know it's not going to be any benefit to them. At the moment, we've got the pick of the good players because of what we're able to offer them on the pitch. And that's a testament to what we're doing off it with people like Mowbray. So I think we're well deserved of our loan players.
Yeah. Likewise, I mean, even with all of the sort of possibilities we've thrown in, ones that we haven't touched on are 4 goals in 10 first half minutes against top of the league Gillingham, Jacob Murphy's first half hat-trick against Gillingham, the revelation that has been Jacob Murphy moving into the one position of the pitch that we need players in less than any other. That seems to be a bit frustrating, isn't it? Because now you look at him and just go, well, we're going to have to play you through the middle, aren't we? It's just like, getting.
You got Madison knocking on the door.
Joe Cole, I mean, Big E, arguably, just queuing up. Let's just see if we can convert some of them into. How crazy is this? We don't need anyone, do we? I guess strikers. You try and convert someone into, but maybe that's the thing. I mean, Jimbo, famously of this parish, Jimbo was saying that when the third goal that went in, that we could take a winger off Norwich and send them back a 20-goal-a-season striker. And then he said basically what happened with Thierry Henry, which I thought was a bit of a leap, albeit, but maybe that's a possible solution to the Armstrong situation if he does leave. I don't know. Any one of them, basically. Let's move on to the Gillingham game, because we're pretty much already in there. Paul, you were there. We were all there. Oh, God. Right. Neil, you were there, weren't you? Let's get through this. Neil, you were there. You're going to tell us what happened, are you?
I am. We were all there. Everybody was there. A lot of people were there, actually. What was it?
Yes.
Over 15.
Yeah.
Which was... I mean, I've got a benchmark now when I'm looking at it. I'm kind of looking to the right of me, and I want to see them sort of open up a new block almost every game. They're not going to, but that's kind of, I know where when they open up that next block, we've got 15 there now. So I just feel like over the course of the season, we need to start nudging that portion of fans around a little bit more, because that was a great attendance, really. And I know everyone was slagging them off for we don't bring enough people to the stadium, but I think pushing 16 on a bloody cold day was, very, very strong. But anyway, football.
Neil, before you go on from there, I moved to Manchester about 10, 11 years ago. When I first went, for about the first 3 years, there was me in the car on my own. And 8 years ago, I met Joey, so there were two of us. And that's pretty much give or take most games. For the first time ever against Gillingham, there were 5 of us in the car.
Nice.
So it just goes to show that there is obviously something beginning to rumble. Hopefully by the end of the season, we'll be hiring a minibus and taking everyone down.
How's the club growing? Yeah.
All jokes aside, that's now a permanent 3 between the end of the season, because one of those people, hello Callum, if you're listening, bought a half-season ticket. So it's incredible to think. I mean, that I imagine isn't an isolated incident. If you think of all the times that we've fucked up in front of big crowds and in big games and everything, actually, you've had a situation where you performed so well that it's realistic that a good number of them people will have bought half-season tickets, won't they?
And you've got to as well. I mean, it's so good to watch. I can't wait to watch these football matches just because of everything about it. It's not like we're winning lucky or anything like that. It's just everything about the game is just speedy and pacey and high quality, and the atmosphere is good. You can't move for love nor money out the back, but we'll forget about that for the time. But the game itself is fantastic. So if you support Coventry, you've got to start turning up if you're not already, because it's so worth it. But yeah, football again. I've got to try again. Football again. It was like sublime. We absolutely blazed them, didn't we? We proper did them in that first half. I mean, we remember like games in the previous years where we've kind of been near the top of the table, getting a little bit excited, sort of fashioned the illusion that we're a good side, and then we play someone who's actually quite good, like Bristol, who tend to be the team, get absolutely tonked, and then the season goes to shit from there on in, just because we kind of lose all our confidence. There was always the kind of feeling that potentially that could happen, just because we're so scared at the moment of being good. But I think Saturday showed, this was the top of the league. This was supposedly, almost four months in, the best team in the league, and we were miles better than them in every facet. Second half, it kind of fell down a little bit, but that was just purely because of the nature of the game. First half, just our attacking unit was just unstoppable. But I'll probably start from defence just because I want to get that out of the way, really, because I want to talk about attack more than anything else. But Ben Turner coming in, he only played an hour, but you immediately saw what he offered you. The man is a man mountain. He's absolutely massive. He's probably the same height as Martin, but he's just rock solid. And you see him playing against the players, and you just think, he's got this under control. You just don't feel any fear with Ben Turner in the team. So having him, and it's obviously better than having Reader in the team, because Reader's a little bit manic in what he does. So you're never too sure whether he's going to throw a boob in there or not. But Turner just feels so sturdy. So I just thought coming in for 60 minutes and playing the game he did, getting the goal as well, was just a fantastic debut for him, and it really sort of set the tone for the team.
Can I just make a couple of notes on Ben Turner? One, I had money on him first goal scorer at 30-1, which was just a ridiculous price. So the second goal was something that was somewhat bittersweet.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah.
More importantly, I felt like he made one mistake in the course of that 60 minutes.
Was that at the beginning?
Fairly towards the beginning, maybe first 15 minutes or so. And when he had, it looked like he realised it, hit pause on the game, and then just sorted everything out. I've never seen a defender go from mistake to resolution that quick ever. I think he either missed. I can't remember exactly what happened, but it ultimately just led to him just sort of just being too big to get round, and just shepherding the ball up for a goal kick. You were like, oh, right, okay, you're too good then still.
Different level, isn't it? It's just managing the game. What is this all about?
Yeah, okay. You haven't got to kill players to assert your authority. You just are authority. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, but that's kind of it for this. Actually, I want to Chris Stokes. I don't think Chris Stokes can play above this level, but I think Chris Stokes is doing a fantastic job for us at this level. I just think, if I met him, I'll give him a strong handshake. I'll probably apologise for him, not that he'd care because he wouldn't have no idea who I am, but I'd apologise just because I've criticised him a lot. But over the last month or two, I just look at him and think he's so dependable, and he's exactly what we need in that defence. We need someone who's like sturdy, controls himself, just plays the game in the right way, and he's so useful. And I just think, again, on Saturday he did a great job for us, and he obviously set up a goal as well, just through sheer determination. So yeah, just a bit of a hat tip to Stokes there. I think he's really come on a lot.
I just wonder with Stokes, sorry, before we leave that, whether there's an element of some of the players like Simon Francis at Bournemouth, and was it? I want to say Ian Everett. There's another lad at Hull who captained them all the way through all of the leagues. Where I think you're right. I think Ian Ashby. That on the face of it, players that you would look at and go, yeah, there's probably a level in them. But I wonder the rate that he's improved since he joined to now. I wonder whether that is a capped situation because his league career has started so late. I wonder if there's an element of those players or of Callum Wilson maybe who, if this is the first point where he's starting to stack games together and we're so used to players getting in the team at 17, 18, maybe he could. His application sounds like it's magnificent in training. Maybe he has got another level in him. I completely agree with what you're saying in theory, but it is fascinating to see that he's gone from being a player that last season you really sort of give or take to being an absolute mainstay of this team now. And the setup for the fourth goal was fantastic, weren't it?
Yeah, I mean, my judgment of him is more from an athletic point of view and just a physique. I don't see him as a top level or a higher level sort of athlete. That's just my judgment of him as I see him. I just don't think he's quite got the fluidity about him. But I agree. Sometimes these players can just move up the notches, without you even realising. And one thing that does go for him is obviously the confidence. I mean, he's come from lower league. He now clearly believes he's good enough to play at this level, whereas last year I do think he had those reservations. And we've seen it before, like you say, with Callum Wilson. I think when he first came in the team, he wasn't too sure whether he was good enough. Suddenly he realised he was 8 miles quicker than these players that he's playing against, and he also just could finish in the league. And that set him up. That's setting up now for life, pretty much. He now believes he's a good player, and I kind of think that's something that happens a lot in football, and it certainly seems to be happening at a different sort of level, but with Chris Stokes at the moment. And so, yeah, just long may it continue. Really, I think he's doing a great job this year. He's really, really kicked on.
Good on you, Stokes.
Can I just interject before you move on from the defence? There was that spell around the 50, 60, 70 minute mark where Gillingham had got back to 4-1 and then had a couple of decent opportunities where our goalkeeper was sort of trying to be a bit over cocky at times. And there was a magnificent covering tackle by Aaron Martin where he basically came from the right-hand side of the defence across to cover behind Ricketts and made a brilliant block that went for a corner.
No, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And I think at that point it was absolutely critical because there's a reason that Sam Ricketts isn't going to get a lot of praise from us, I think, at the moment, because I don't think he's playing particularly well, neither at right back or centre half. When he went to centre half, he obviously wasn't as dominating as Ben Turner, but he was a bit unsure. But that covering tackle by Aaron Martin was absolutely excellent. And I think he is possibly one of our more unsung heroes at the moment. I think Aaron Martin's attitude has obviously changed quite a lot. And he's now looking like the player we first saw when we saw him from Southampton. He looks like a player who maybe League One is the best he's going to do, but he's looking like a damn good League One centre-half, which, considering how lowly some of our fans thought of him last season,
yeah,
I think again it shows. Again, I think we've got to put it down to Mowbray. Obviously, they've chatted with him, and he's at that age now where it's like you're either going to make a career of it or you're not. But yeah, I think he really is stepping it up at the moment.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I mean, I think the point we've got here is that you can't write off any player in any sense, just because there's so much that goes on the pitch on match day which can influence their performance. And we've seen it in the past where we've had players who have looked utterly terrible, and you look at them and to your best judgment you think, well, they're never going to make it, and then they either move on to another team or your team evolves and suddenly they look something completely different. And we see it too often to ignore it almost. It's just too easy to look at a player and make it a snap judgment. And I think what Aaron Martin's doing this year, and Chris Stokes to a strong degree as well, is it's showing that you can't just write off a player and just commit to that and say, well, that's it, I'm never going to acknowledge him as a good player ever again, because there's always a chance that situations can change, circumstances can change, and they can begin to blossom. And that's what Martin's doing. He's he's really stepped into the role. He's still not as dominant as he probably could be for someone his size, but that's neither here nor there really. I don't think he's just really he's doing a great job for us in the middle, and that's again, long may it continue, because we need players playing consistently well for 5-10 games at a time. Where do we get to? We're moving up the pitch, are we? Yeah, Fleck. Fleck was masterful in the first half, I'd say. There seemed to be a lot of people in the press box. I mean, there's apparently a lot of scouts at that game. And I think if you're a scout at that... Yeah.
It's the last game you'd want them at.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think if I was a scout watching that game, there's one player on that pitch you just think had utter control, and that was John Fleck in that first half. He was just doing what he does best, and that was just floating around in that middle portion and just picking out the right pass at the right time. And he's just this whole hamstring thing. I do wonder whether he maybe has been sort of carrying it for a little while, just because getting Biggie in when obviously we do have other players available to come in that position. I just felt like maybe they just sort of held off taking him out of the firing line just for a little bit, and then they got Biggie in, and now they were able to give Biggie a little bit of a go. But that's an aside. That's nothing to do with the match. That's just my thoughts on it. Who else? Jim O'Brien. Oh, Jim O'Brien is hilarious. There's just like so much value in having that man in your team, because he's only got one pace setting, and that's like sheer lunatic. It's constant, non-stop, but it rubs off on everybody else. I mean, people have breathers throughout the match, but Jim O'Brien is just non-stop, incessant speed of sort of thought. And sometimes that goes against him. He doesn't always make the right decision because he's so manic. But when he comes into his own is when it's the anticipation side of things. He seems to see runs and anticipate things far quicker than a lot of the players on the pitch. And that's where the goal came from again, because he was just so on the money. He knew what was happening ahead of him. He saw the run, and he did another through ball, and that must have been his third or fourth ball of that ilk this season. And it's just, people will like him, some people won't like him because he is a little bit haphazard, but I think you've got to play Jim O'Brien if you can, just because of the intensity that he brings to every performance. It's insane. I think it just rubs off on everybody on the pitch.
And then sorry, while you're on to Jim O'Brien, it's okay. So we're discussing. I was never a massive Carl Baker fan. People may have worked out, and I sort of see Jim O'Brien and Carl Baker, but I see only positives in Jim O'Brien, where he's not. He's the ultimate team man, where it's all for the team. There doesn't seem to be much need for personal glory. And as you say, those passes through, he's done 2 in the last home game. The one for Murphy was absolute beauty. And it's like, the keeper doesn't know whether to stick or twist. And it's just inch perfect. And as you say, it's not even like the first or second one that he's done that this season. He's up there. I mean, he must be our most assist player.
No, it's still Murphy, I think, but he must be gaining on him.
Yeah, and it's just, when he's in the team, you can just see he just lifts the players, even when I think he's having not his best particular spell of 5 minutes. Yeah. But because of the way he goes about it, because my issue with Carl Baker was always it was everyone else's fault. If you played a missed pass and it didn't go to someone, it was their fault. And he'd flow his arms up, and it was just all this. Oh, look at me, how dramatic I am. With
to be fair, Jim O'Brien's just like that.
But I think with Jim O'Brien, I think it's more of rage at himself.
Yeah,
and he'll bang the floor. But the next time, it's all about I can do better than this.
Yeah, that's
not
true.
Oh, why didn't that person retrieve the ball? It's like that was shit. That was my fault. Then he'll go back and he'll win the ball back and he'll get himself back into the game. And it's all about him trying to drag the whole team. And he just seems like he gives it for the team, not for his own personal glory.
The other one with the over gesticulation was often Clinton Morrison, and that felt very much like playing to the gallery of someone who just liked the attention to be on him. And I think there was an element of that with Baker. Whereas I agree with you, I think that O'Brien is just as histrionic, but it feels to me that it's much more real. Like he's just that passionate. I personally felt that this might sound hyperbolic, but that I thought without him setting the tempo in the way that he did against Gillingham, I don't think we'd have won the game. I think in the first 10 minutes, the way that he haired around like a fucking maniac, it gave you a sense of how important it was to him. And I think one of the things that we've done so brilliantly this season is to react as a team and as a unit. And I think that the players have responded to each other and stepped up their games in the instances of sort of Fleck and players that we've had last season, and O'Brien himself actually, the way that they've come on, and Aaron Martin, as you touched on, as a result of the quality around them. Equally, I think they respond off the energy. So when Murphy bursts through, there's the emphasis to get the ball to him. And if O'Brien kicks the shit out of two players in the first 10 minutes, the players know that they've got to match that intensity. And I thought he was absolute intensity. But that's almost to do him a disservice because, like you say, as yet again, that pass.
He just sees it, doesn't he? He sees it. I mean, we can see it from afar, but rarely do someone like Kent. He's young. He doesn't see those passes anymore. So you couldn't imagine him putting that through. But O'Brien regularly will find the gap, and it must help obviously having someone like Murphy and Armstrong running ahead of you. There's a period or a possession. I can't even say the right word. There's a portion of pitch ahead of them where if you pull it into, nobody's going to catch them, and it's just going to put them through on goal. And he's spot on. I think what we need to do this season, and I think we're doing it well, is sort of balancing the pros and the cons of the players. And I think you need to realise that there's more value in having Jim O'Brien on the pitch with even if he's giving the ball away, even if he's making mistakes, everything else that he brings to the party is still so valuable. And in many ways, that's the same with Kent. I mean, we can go on and on about him not having the final product, not having the final ball. But I mean, Paul, you're going to this in Bradford. I mean, everything I heard was that he brought an impact to the match, just because of how direct he was and how that influences, how the other team think about your team as well. And that's got just as much as importance as if someone's going to make the right pass every single time. And it's just, I think we're doing a better job of giving the players some leeway this year. I mean, obviously it helps that they're winning all the time, but it's useful. I mean, we need to do that more because that's kind of how we're going to get through the season. Where take the rough with the smooth when things don't go quite as well. Still acknowledging when the good about the players, and I guess the absolute good about our team. Watch for this segue here. Was Jacob Murphy on Saturday? It was just.
I thought he played well. Yeah,
he did all right, didn't he? He was in the zone.
Still disappointed he missed that sitter. He's about a yard out. The fuck was he doing? Disgrace.
I thought he'd missed the first one actually. I didn't know how he got it in. He was kind of on his, and he took both of them to his left, and even the second one was a decent finish. But I didn't expect him to put it away just because it was on his left foot and he was a little bit off balance. But fair play to him. He put both in, and
I thought with the first one, because we're right in front of it, I thought he was really lucky. I thought he was falling down and then he scuffed it in. And then when I rewatched it, I was like, no, fair play. You had pretty much 100% control over it. I was convinced that he'd like flapped it a bit and it was a bit lucky that he'd scuffed it in. But I looked at it again. I was like, no, you're really good. Carry on.
I've gone blank. What's the hat-trick goal? What was that?
Actually, it was one with a great ball from Stokes.
Stokes, yeah.
Yes.
Where basically Fleck went, just run, fatty, run. And then passed the ball in front of him, and Stokes barreled forward. And
yeah.
I think
you watch the pass is immaculate because Murphy doesn't even have to sort of change his stride. It's just what you'd want as a striker running into the centre of goal. That ball that's just perfectly weighted.
I also think there's another bit of it that you miss in there is he draws, then bounces a defender away.
Yeah.
So actually, the space that he creates for himself to allow him to get the ball in, I thought he did fantastically cleverly. I thought that was a really astute move because the defenders made odd runs throughout the game, but I guess that's happened now. I thought that Stokes did very, very well, but yeah, carry on.
I think I'm done. I just feel like we kind of, it all happened in the first half. Really, I felt we did what we needed to do. We blitzed them. We got the 4 goals. We were in control second half. Really, they came back at us a little bit. That Dak was a bit of a knob, but that's just my opinion.
Was he a bit of a knob in the way that good players tend to be a bit of a knob?
I thought he tried to be a good player, but he was a kicker. I don't like kickers. Just be good. But
he was a niggly bastard, but I think he's a very good player, isn't he, for League One?
Oh yeah, well he got the goal, and he was the only one who really stood out. So that's obviously going to say something for him. But
in a team that properly got their ass handed to them as well.
We showed him who was boss.
Yeah, we really did. I thought the second half was one of the most boring I can remember. Paul, there was a moment, I don't know if you remember this, where did Ryan Haynes get a head injury late on in the second half? Yeah. And Paul, you shouted up, I think, what happened? And everyone just looked blankly at you. And you were like, has anyone been watching the game? And I realised that maybe for 5 or 10 minutes before that moment, my eyes were looking in the direction of the pitch, but I don't think I'd taken anything in, partly because I don't think there was anything to take in.
It's a bit like the other week, me and the wife watched Thor 2, and I'd been looking at my phone for 5 minutes, looked up and just turned to her and went, we're still watching Thor 2?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah. No way. The second, we discussed this at half time. You're just in Edinburgh, your team's 4-0 down, you're top of the table, what do you say? But conversely, in the home dressing room, you've got Tony Mowbray. You can't, because everyone was, you just go out and do the same? But it's not that simple. You can't just, because the half time scrum, all you can say is basically go out there and be professional. And there was that bit where, as I said, Reece Charles Cook overplayed the ball and was a bit lucky. Then he threw the ball out to John Fleck. He wasn't really playing it. And you could see that, there was a chance there that they really could have wobbled. But they grew stronger again.
Yeah.
And it was good that obviously they only had to play Ben Turner for 60 minutes, which meant they could play him against Bradford. They could bring Biggie on, who looked like football was a foreign game to him. But I think
he was terrible, wasn't he?
He was drunk, wasn't he?
But I think he was trying to show off in a way of, look, I'm back. And it's like, well, you can make mistakes against Gillingham when you're 4-1 up. It doesn't matter, and it's it was a good way to get him back into the ground because you got standing ovation, and it was a good way to you're going to reintroduce someone into the team. 4-1 up against the league leaders is the way to do it. And
you could have moonwalked on.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's like we stood up. We've been standing up for the last, I don't know, since we moved into the singers' corner. But it's just, you forget what it's like to actually celebrate goals properly. And what I mean is, we've watched a lot of goals over the last 10 years, but there's been very few you've actually properly celebrated. And those goals on Saturday, you just celebrated with, you were hugging random men again. You were at that point of, this is what football should be about, where you're happy not as a person but as an entity, like a massive. You've got that fan base and everyone's feeling, and I say it's sort of everyone's pushing in the same direction. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like, as a club, from the owners who have decided they're not going to speak and not make stupid comments, down to the fans, from the fans down to the owners of the club, whichever way you look at it, we're actually as united as we've ever been. And that comes with winning games. It's all, that's all football's about, is winning games. But it's just, as you say, we're not just winning games. We thrashed top of the table in a 10-minute spell of just utter brilliant football. And you say that the first goal came from us clearing their corner, and within 20 seconds, we'd scored. And through to the last goal, where we haven't really talked about, we did a little triangle in our own sort of third, and then built from there with Fleck dictating the play. And it's the football you want to watch. It's
really
how how you'd build a team if you've got 3 lightning quick attacking players, and Jim O'Brien. The other thing we didn't talk about Jim O'Brien is it's not just with the ball. I wouldn't want to play against Jim O'Brien if I had the ball at my feet, because he doesn't let you settle. He doesn't give you time. He doesn't let you pick that pass. He makes you rush and makes retaining or getting the ball back for Coventry so much easier, because he doesn't allow centre backs or defenders to actually think about it. And it's the whole unit. The way they played on Saturday is what's going to take us to the title.
I would, before we move on to Bradford, and I think it's probably about time that we do, I'd just very quickly like to give props to Ryan Kent, who admittedly I'm going to give with one hand and take away with another. I thought he was pretty chronic in possession again on Saturday, but I thought he was brilliant out of possession. I think likewise with Jim O'Brien, what you're saying, I thought especially in the second half, for a player who we've accused of being self-focused, I thought his tracking back and his defending work was impeccable. I thought he did a really, really, really selfless job in the second half.
Definitely.
Yeah. Bradford, Paul, you were there. We weren't. So you're gonna fill us in. You touched on Biggie to start off with. Do you want to start there?
Oh yeah, I mean Fleck was out, so Biggie came, and basically we made some changes to the team, and I've sort of been thinking about this quite a bit since it occurred, and I do have certain issues with Ryan Kent, and I've come to a conclusion that it's more my issue than his. But also, I'd rather have Ryan Kent not quite providing the final touch than some of the other players we have whose deficiencies annoy me more. And when I looked at the team, and me and Neil have had this discussion at the Footballer Blogging Awards, was Neil sort of, I don't understand people who get annoyed by the starting 11, because that can change. So I looked at the starting 11 where you had Fortune up front, Armstrong, Murphy and Lemares behind, and Biggie came in for Fleck. And I was trying not to be a bit disappointed. And on the way down to the ground, I was talking to a Bradford. He was a Cov lad, but he lived in Bradford, and his 3 sons were all Bradford City season ticket holders. So I was talking to him and them, and I think they'd kept 5 or 6 clean sheets before this one, and they were looking to break a post-war record. And I thought, okay, if I was a Bradford defender, who would I want to play against? Would I want to play against that 4 who destroyed Gillingham, or would I like to play against Fortune? And I feel like we played, and I understand we've discussed this in the past. I understand why Fortune is at the club and that sort of having a big, strong centre forward. I understand that, but Bradford have 2 big, strong centre halves whose only ability, it appears to be, is to be big and strong and to punt the ball in the general direction of Hansen. That's their modus operandi. They're not particularly players who I get the feeling were going to be that good if we actually got the ball down and ran at them. And also, we just had discussions with the people around. For me, if you're going to go with Fortune, you're almost best not to play Armstrong. And I know that sounds perverse, but Armstrong for me is the best number 9 in League One by some distance.
In the world?
No, in League One. He might be the best 3rd-tier striker in the world, but he is, and he's shown it that against Gillingham, why he didn't score goals. His movement creates space, and his movement troubles teams so much that Murphy is almost forgotten, and you forget that pace from deep. And for me, while he's the best number 9, he's possibly not even Coventry's 5th best left winger. So having him out on the left just doesn't sit. It doesn't sit right with me, because I don't think not that he can't play the role. It's just it doesn't suit what he's best at. And I know you could throw, but you hit the post, and it's like he did, but maybe if he'd been playing through the middle, he might have had more than one chance in 90 minutes instead of just one chance. And it was that sort of, I'd rather have, and I said this after the game, I'd rather we had played with our best team. Even if we'd have lost, I'd love to have seen how Jim O'Brien, Kent, Murphy and Armstrong would have got on against that back four, or to be fair to Bradford, they play with a back eight. I'd like to have seen how we could have, if we could have beaten that team, because I just get the feeling that Bradford were happy to have seen the way we lined up, because I think it sort of gave them the confidence that a clean sheet wasn't going to be that difficult to achieve. And a bit like us, it was like as soon as you saw Hansen up front, it's like, well, they're going to play one style of football. Well, that's fine, because I don't care how good Hansen is. I know Big Ben Turner's a better centre half than he is centre forward, and that proved we dominated in our third. And Aaron Martin had another solid game. And
just let me cut in a second. Is it obligatory to describe him as Big Ben Turner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you seen the guy?
I just wanted to check. I just don't think since he's come back, I don't think I've ever heard. I think I've heard anyone call him Ben Turner. He's just Big Ben Turner, isn't he? That's just his name.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, yeah. I'm not. Yeah.
Sorry, as you were going to move on to Aaron Martin, I think.
Yeah, Aaron Martin again had another really solid game. Sam Ricketts took. I mean, how old is Ricketts?
34.
30, yeah.
Okay, how many games has he played?
I would suggest a lot. Yeah.
Okay, if you have a throw in on the edge of your in line with your 18-yard box, where do you not throw the ball? Would it be across your own 18-yard box?
Sorry, I lost concentration. Are we doing Only Covvect?
No, it's basic football knowledge of you're a right back, you're taking a throw in. Don't throw it into the centre of your goal, especially if the two of your defenders are looking at you going, "Why the fuck have you just? Oh shit! Now we've got to deal with possibly the best cross they've put in all game." And luckily we managed to clear it. Ricketts is going through a very funny spell at the moment, but that throw-in was just very emphatic of where he's at. That was just bizarre and needless.
Neil, where do you stand on Ricketts' performance at the moment?
I don't think I see it quite as strongly. I mean, he's certainly not as imposing as he was in the first 10 games. But I just think maybe I'm not watching it. I think you probably picked up on it, so you're focusing on it, and you're able to see the deficiencies more than I am. I'm not seeing it, to be honest. I just feel like he's doing his job as expected, but he's not doing as well as he could have been. But he's certainly. I don't think he's playing poorly, but I don't know. I wouldn't like to say because I haven't thought about it.
I'm with you. I don't think he's ever hit the heights of that first game against Wigan where he just looked unstoppable. But I think he's been a very, very, very good player for us. Even recently.
Against Bradford, I always felt that when they were on top, they tended to come down our right, and they put in quite a few decent balls from that position. They didn't seem to have it as easily on the left, or our left. And there were a couple of where he just seemed to make really strange decisions with the ball at his feet, which probably could have been more dangerous if A, Bradford were better, or B, the other three of our defenders weren't as good, to be honest. And it's the only reason I've noticed it is because the other three are playing at such a high standard. You notice that he isn't quite on their level, and he does seem to be making he's doing interesting things where you think, I don't quite understand why you've done that. And I can sort of see why maybe I can see why it was desperate. Maybe thought it was desperate to bring in a centre half, because I wasn't in comfort with Ricketts at centre half. I thought he was getting moved around a bit, and people were playing in and around him quite easily. And since Ben Turner's come in, you've noticed that gap has been pretty well sealed. And against Gillingham, you could see there was definitely a difference when, and maybe it's Martin. I mean, maybe it's Aaron Phillips is also particularly not a very good right back. So when Ricketts went to centre half, our defence as a unit didn't look as strong. But there was definitely a chink in the defence which wasn't there when Turner was at centre half, that was when Ricketts was at centre half. And also maybe I just expected him to be playing at a higher level than he is doing. But, we've seen it before with older players, is they do have dips in form like younger players when they get to that age. And maybe we're playing a lot of games at the moment. Maybe his body isn't quite reacting to it in the way you'd hope, because playing a fullback is a very challenging game in current styles, isn't it? And that's
in this day and age.
And I think the way that Stokes plays that role is very up and down. I don't think Sam Ricketts is going to be in that position to put in the cross for the fourth goal as he did on Saturday. And that's what we're sort of asking from him a bit. We're asking him to be that mobile, and I think he's not quite coping, or maybe we're asking a bit too much of him in that position. But for me, I think he is one of the players who isn't on the top of his game. And when you look at some of the others, like Biggie, he was brilliant. Vincelo, who I saw someone the other day put on, it was on the Guardian, was like, we've got tries in the centre midfield like Fleck and Vincelo, and you were like, who's defining Vincelo as a trier?
Yeah, behave yourself.
It's like the guy's just come in and been absolute class. And again, against Bradford, he is that player who takes the fight to the opposition. And while obviously Bradford don't particularly like the midfield, they tend to sort of hit the ball over the midfield. It's still the area that needs to be won. And there was a spell where Bradford maybe got on top, but for the majority of the game, Vincelo and Biggie looked a very solid unit and looked very competent together. And then in front of that, I like Lemares. I like what he does, but I get the feeling with Lemares, he needs pace around him. He can play the same pass as Jim O'Brien, but he seems to only be playing in teams where, like, Armstrong's 50 yards away from him on the left wing, or Murphy's not having that space because how Armstrong moves players around, Fortune doesn't, because teams aren't worried about Fortune running past them with pace. It's, why would you be? You wouldn't be. We weren't concerned about Hansen breaking our back four with his lightning pace. And I thought Bradford coped with us for 60 minutes, 70 minutes very comfortably. And it's interesting that Ryan Kent's getting a lot of praise, and I'm not going to say that Ryan Kent didn't have an impact, but I think the reason he had an impact was because up until that time, we were playing in second gear because we didn't have our best team on the pitch. We didn't have the players to move Bradford around to actually utilise the strengths of Murphy, of Armstrong. And it wasn't until I think it was sort of made in like the 70th minute or 65th minute, it wasn't until that point we actually had our best attacking unit. And then, unsurprisingly, we then started to look like an attacking force. We looked like a team who could break Bradford down. And there was a chance in the second half where Kent went through, had a shot. It fell to Murphy, who probably should have done better, either passed earlier or shot earlier. But it was almost like you're chasing your tail at that point, because you've got to get Kent and Jim O'Brien into the game because they're on as subs. Bradford are obviously well set because they played for 70 minutes by that point there. You don't mess around with the back four or back six as Bradford did. So they were already sort of at ease, and it was just, I said, just that nagging. And 0-0 Bradford is a great result. I'm not complaining about it. It's just, for me, I'd have just loved to have seen if that front four could have taken Bradford apart, could have given us the victory. It's just, there's that nagging bit of me that's like, and I know it's all damn lies and statistics, but 3 of the 4 games we've failed to score in the league this season, Fortune started. And someone else, but how many of those we lost? And that's a fair comment. But one of the other games he started was obviously Fleetwood away, where it took an own goal for us to score. And you're like, and I know it's away from home, and I know we had this discussion about we wanted a big, strong centre forward up front, yada, yada, yada. But when that 4 played as well as they did against Gillingham, when they're on that much form, and I know what people are saying, we played Saturday, Sunday, or whatever, but after Saturday's game, we've got a fortnight off because we're out the FA Cup, and you almost like, why just put your best 11 on against Bradford and see if the best team in the division, who've just destroyed the previous best team in the division, can win that game. And I think that's the thing that's bugging me. Is I'd love to have won, so then make it, we're that far away from Gillingham again. It's all about momentum, and it's just, I feel like it's an opportunity wasted.
Yeah, he took a punt, didn't he, and it didn't really come off, did it?
No, and it's
to go back to where you started from. I think so in terms of not being disappointed about the first 11 that goes out there, I think that's fair enough. But that when you've got Fortune should be an option, and it just feels like when you've got a first 11 who'd done so well as they had against Gillingham, why not play them? And then if it transpires that you need a stronger player, bring him on, rather than it being you wouldn't start with your plan B, would you?
Yeah, my point around that is it's never definitive. I mean, mine's more. I always get a little bit around it when, say, there's just one change to the starting 11. Say we play, I don't know, Murphy instead of Kent or something like that, and people go absolutely livid. Oh God, we're done for today. All this sort of stuff. Yeah. It's like, no. I mean, Bradford was more of an extreme example because, like you say, you're changing what was a very comprehensively winning team. You're bringing in someone who we know hasn't played that well this season. All those sort of stuff go. And I think people have a right to be disappointed about it. I mean, I'd never be definitive about it. I'd never say, well, that we're never going to win with that team, because we've seen already, we have played well with Fortune in the team. It has happened. So I can understand it's not the be-all and end-all. Him playing means we're going to lose or we're not going to win. But yeah, I am on your side on this one. I do feel like the opportunity was there. I mean, at one point, if we'd won, we would have been 7 points clear of third place or whatever it was. So, I mean, that's a huge gap at this point in the season already.
Silly,
so,
isn't it?
And it's one of those where, like you say, we've got a 2-week gap afterwards or whatever it is. It's probably worth taking the risk and throwing your same team out again.
And I was talking, I said, when I got back to the car, I found the Cov Bradford fan, and he said, well, we cancelled you out and you cancelled us out. And it was like, I said to Joe before the pod today, for me, I tweeted this before the game, if they're going to play Hans and we've got Big Ben Turner, we're going to win that battle. But also, if they've got their centre halves and we've got Fortune, we're going to lose that battle. And it's almost, it's almost without Jim O'Brien being there. It's just, I'd like to have him to have, and he did the same against Rochdale away. And I know it's all, I think Mowbray's doing a brilliant job. But I think there's always that thing that, you'd always do things slightly different if you were in his position. And, we're all sort of armchair managers and all that sort of thing. But it's just, why just leave either Jim O'Brien or Kent in the side. And if you have Fortune up front, then have Kent wide, Armstrong wide, and Murphy behind. So at least you've still then got your 3 quick players, your dynamic players.
I agree.
Or leave Jim O'Brien in, who's going to make life difficult. And I like Ramirez, and I like Armstrong, but they're not. And I like Murphy, but they're not. They're not in the same way a pain in the ass to play against as Jim O'Brien. And I know I haven't played football at a high level. I know it's all sorts, but I always think, who would I least like to play against? And I get the feeling when Bradford's seen the team sheet, they'd have been a lot happier than if they'd have seen the same start. Well, apart from obviously Fleck, who was injured, they'd have been a lot happier to see Fortune up front than they would have been to see Kent, Jim O'Brien, Murphy, and Armstrong. Because I think you've then got to say, shit, well, who do we mark? These 4 are all quick. They're all interchangeable. They can all move around. They can all interact. Once you've got Fortune, you start, and we've seen it over the years with different players, and it's not particularly a criticism of Fortune at all. It was a bit like when we used to have Clive Platt. Once you've got that player in who you think, I can hit the ball towards, you then start going a bit one-dimensional because it's the easy pass at times. I'll just pass Fortune now, and it's just like to have seen something different against Bradford. But I'm happy with a 0-0. So there you go. I'm a contrary twat.
Finally. Oh dear. I think we should maybe roll over Only Covvect until next week, where we've only got one game, and just do a quick Doncaster preview and wrap?
Yeah, we're pushing for time, aren't we?
Yeah, a wee bit, yeah. Is that cool with everyone?
No, I spent hours doing these questions.
You can roll them over till next week. They don't go in the bin.
Yeah, now we're going to lose the piece of paper. I'll attach them to the boiler so I don't lose it.
Lovely old job. Right, we've got Doncaster on Saturday at home. I'm going to give you a brief rundown because, as I've said, I'm pretty tired. They are in 16th place at the moment. They have won, I think it's 4 of their last 5 games, but it's a bit of a false thing because when you look at who they've played, they played Blackpool, Stalybridge Celtic, Colchester at home, and someone else who... I said Colchester, didn't I? Yeah, so on the face of it, it looks like they're on a reasonable run. I'd more suggest that they're just playing teams who are too crap to not beat. They've got Darren Ferguson in charge, who has a famous dad, and Andy Williams up front, who has a famous counterpart. He's got 8 goals so far this season. I don't know why I said it like that, but that's how I chose to say it. And yeah, they've got... It's one of them, really. They've got some players, and I could read their names, but I guess you could just go on the BBC website and look at them yourself, couldn't you? That's a message for you there, listener. Yeah, I had a quick look on one of their forums, and they're mixed to about how they feel about us. Some of them recognise the fact that we're scoring an awful lot of goals and we're really good, but that many of them just say, well, we'll get them on the counter-attack then. Which I think is probably a bit optimistic.
It's a bit simplistic for a team that's the highest their position have been so far this season, being 14th.
Yeah. So we'll just get on the counter. If only Gillingham would have thought of that.
Football's so easy.
Yeah. That was, I guess, the funniest thing about Gillingham, wasn't it? Was it did look like they'd come and gone, right, we'll sit back and catch them on the break. And after about 20 minutes, they were like, we've realised we can't deal with this.
Yeah. Forward's gone. Okay.
We've backed ourselves into a bit of a corner here.
Yeah.
So, Doncaster. Let's get some predictions. Neil, what do you think?
2-0, Joey. 2-0.
Yeah, and Paul?
Sorry, 3-0.
I'm guessing these are both Sky Blue victories, are they?
Natch,
Ovs. Yeah, I'm going to say... I'm going to conservatively go for a 2-0 victory to us. Imagine... This is like end of days, isn't it?
Just all green on the website. Greens and greys. Very good.
10 unbeaten. We've not even mentioned that yet. We've gone 10 unbeaten and we've not mentioned it.
I don't know. It's just...
Our cup
4 games on the row as well.
Our cup runneth over.
I'm trying to find somewhere that... There was a thing somewhere that someone's tweeted, like, 6 of our next 6 games were all against teams who are out of, like, in the bottom 10 or something. It's just... Oh, yeah. Next 6 opponents for City are currently 10th or lower in League One.
Let's do it.
You know,
top of Christmas.
I mean, you know, just win the title. Just that's it. That's all you have to do. It turned to Jimbo, who we previously noted today, just turned to me in first half and went, "This team can win the title," and you were like, "Yeah, this team really." You know, I was talking to a Man United fan on Saturday, and I was like, "This team, you know, we can win the title." And he looked at me and I went, "You do realise that being top in November, this is the latest we've been top of any division since 1968. No, 67. You know, from the last 50 years, we've never been top later than October in a season."
Madness.
When you look at actually the top 6 now, we beat Gillingham, we beat Burton,
yeah.
We beat Wigan, Walsall beat us, and we drew against Bradford. So it's not like... And none of those, I'd say probably Walsall looked reasonably good, but I think we were just all shell-shocked when Maddison going off, really. But other than that, Burton looked up at a shite. We destroyed.
I thought Burton looked quite good.
Yeah, nah. But that was the Telly game, wasn't it?
Yeah. With the Mad Aaron Martin Winslow goal.
Yeah, I didn't feel it at all. I thought they were a bit naff myself.
Okay.
But, yeah, win it.
I thought they were a bit one-dimensional, but I thought they were pretty good. I think the thing with Burton that I'm looking forward to is I think that Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank is too high profile, and I think it's only a matter of time before he gets plucked by an ailing Premier League or more likely sort of middling but big sleeping giant championship team, and that'll just completely derail them. The cult of personality there is pretty much the thing that is carrying them through. I think they could fall away. I realistically
certainly not goals. They've scored 17.
Yeah, it's not.
That's utter rubbish.
Yeah, I just think they could easily capitulate. It's Wigan, I think, are the ones that you look at and go, you could cause us a problem. But even, I mean, if you look even outside of the top six, Peterborough in 7th, Southend in 8th.
Yeah.
It's not. There is, at the very least, there is no reason why, Neil, you might like this pessimism, it would be a tragedy given this start if we finished outside of the top 6. It should be an automatic promotion. You've got to be aiming for at least.
Just keep doing. We've got to do what we're doing until the end of this year, just to build that buffer, and then we can, then we can start. We can truly believe. Then just got to finish off the job, and it's easier said than done. But I just want that buffer where people can't keep talking about, oh, well, at least we're safe from relegation. Fuck off talking about relegation. I just want people to forget about anything below top 6 as soon as possible. And so our focus is all about promotion. Because once, that intensity of feeling amongst everybody is only focused on one thing, it's got to take us that one way. Because we've never had that before. We've never had that pure commitment from the club. They're actually going to do it. We've been like in an 8th, and we've kind of been looking up at them longingly at the top 6, thinking, oh, if we win a couple of games, we might be in there. This is different. We're leading the way, and I can't see it stopping. We're too good.
Two final points. One, surely Barnsley, Swindon, and Oldham should be in the top 4 because they have the most loans.
Well, yeah, they're cheating the most, aren't they? Yeah.
What I found quite interesting, the last couple of post-match interviews, Tony Mowbray's come out and said, I've been top of the table twice recently at Christmas and not finished in the playoffs. And what I've been dying for the interviewer to ask is, do you know why? And have you, if it happened to you twice,
you learned anything? Yeah.
Yeah. What have you learned from? Was it the fact that you had a great striker who got injured in the second half of the season? Did you have too many kids? I just looked at it and go, and how are you going to stop that happening this time? Instead of sort of everyone going, yeah, Mowbray's been really sort of level-headed about it. I love them to go, but you are going to make sure that doesn't happen here. Yeah, you are going to realise if you're top at Christmas, you're going to have to win the league. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of people very pissed off if we don't finish in the top 6. Because for us not to finish in the top 6, you'd have to have a second half of the season like we had under Gary McAllister, where we won one game in like 20-odd games. So it's like, stop saying, oh, I'm level, we've been here before. Yeah, but learn from that mistake and make sure it doesn't fucking happen. If we're top of the table at Christmas, I'm going to start getting T-shirts printed saying, I've finally seen us be not shit.
I love that idea that Mowbray's just like, seriously, guys, don't get excited. This happens all the time with me. I always fuck it up. Like, well, don't. Yeah, that'd be nice. Right, let's wrap things up then. So if you want to get in touch with us, it's the email is neelamptyshow@gmail.com, or it's @neelamptyshow on the Twitter. I'm not too sure whether we've got anything we need to plug for anyone.
Tomorrow, which will be today, I don't know what time Joey's going to get this out. There is Steve Phelps and some of the 87 Cup winning team are doing a book signing somewhere. I'm assuming it's Waterstones.
Waterstones in Coventry.
But it'll be all over Twitter. But
that's @Steve Phelps 87 on Twitter. Yeah.
It's a very, very good book, and I'd recommend anyone buy it for Christmas. But Definitely. Also, obviously, you get to meet some of the lads who, up until this season, were the heroes of our youth. And luckily, they're about to finally be replaced.
What a beautiful sentiment to end things on. Paul, thanks.
Cheers, buddy.
Neil, thanks.
Cheers, guys.
We're back and it's beautiful. Bye!